For those of you who are new, this is a general surgery grand rounds. For the past several years, we invite speakers from really all over the world to come talk on topics that are pertinent to us as surgeons. And I put the schedule together. And as I was putting the schedule together, one of the topics that really we hadn't covered very much was leadership as a broad topic. And I thought, I wondered who I could get who would be the greatest get ever to talk about leadership. No kidding, that's actually what crossed my mind. In fact, I might have sent that in that email to you. You may be the greatest get ever, please send it. And I was surprised that I got, okay, send, back to me. I am here to introduce Bill McRaven, who is the Chancellor of the UT system. His vision for the University of Texas is widely known and talked about, and I invited him here to talk specifically on something related to leadership and the topic of his choice. He has a long, distinguished military career that I don't need to go over. But his vision and his perspective from a person who's used healthcare in both the military and civilian sense, and now is in charge of incorporating the academic medical world in the state of Texas, I thought would be such a unique perspective that I think it would grow us as leaders and surgeons and make our place truly a place that what happens here changes the world. So without further ado, Bill McRaven.
Thanks very much. You know, my mother would be extremely proud of me to be standing in front of a bunch of doctors. She had wanted me to be a doctor. My grandfather on my father's side was a country doctor, and his father was a country doctor, so we came from a line of doctors, and somehow my dad and I got a little off track. She sent me to UT to take pre-med. That lasted about one semester, and I realized that I was not going to be a doctor. Having said that, I probably spent enough time in hospitals over my childhood at Fort Sam and at Wilford Hall with broken arms, broken legs, cut tendons, hands, etc. And then, of course, my time in the military, I spent a lot of time in and around hospitals, and since 9/11, unfortunately, in CAS, the combat hospitals, quite a bit. I was going to talk about the relationship of military medicine and give you a sense of how military medicine is potentially different from civilian medicine. And recognizing you have so many former military officers in your ranks today, I think that's probably a discussion that you can have with them. So I'm going to kind of focus a little bit more on leadership, and then time permitting, I will talk a little bit about part of what we're trying to do at UT, and then again, a little bit of my sense of the differences between military medicine and kind of the way things are done in the civilian arena. But let me talk about leadership in broad terms. Every military guy has got to start off with a quote from Karl von Clausewitz. And Clausewitz was an 18th century Prussian general. And he wrote the seminal book called On War. And in On War, he says, everything in war is simple. It's just the simple things are hard. Everything in war is simple, it's just the simple things are hard. I was heading back to Afghanistan in 2009, and I was reading a publication, a foreign policy magazine, and in it were two articles by a couple of PhDs from the East Coast. And it was interesting because they were kind of two separate articles. And both guys were talking about how does the American military win the war in Afghanistan. And they said, you know, the military, they're just not very smart. If when they were in Afghanistan, they would only build roads, they could win the war, because they could connect the central government to the provincial government, to the districts, to the villages. If they could only build roads, well, no shit, why didn't we think about that? We did think about that. It's just when people are shooting at you and trying to blow you up, it's a little hard to build roads. That's like leadership. I could get up on the whiteboard and say, let me tell you what you need to know about leadership. You know, lead from the front, take care of your troops, set the example. That's easy to say. It's just hard to do. So let me take you through my time, my 37 years, in very quick order, in the SEAL teams, and tell you some of the leadership things that I learned. And I will tell you, it doesn't make a difference whether you ever spend a day in uniform. I'm hoping that these lessons are universal. They're challenges that we all have that were kind of reinforced in my time in the military. So let me start off with SEAL training. So SEAL training occurs in Coronado, California. Yeah, it's a beautiful resort town. I would never look at it the same way again. But the bus training compound is right on the beach. It's about 100 yards from the beach. It's got a diving tower where we practice our diving, deep sea diving, and our pressure tests. It's got barracks. It's got what we call the grinder, which is an area about probably twice the size of this for the guys who do the PT. And it's broken down into 3 phases. It's a 6-month course, broken down into 3 phases. The first phase is really all about stressing the individual to find out really who wants to be there. And it is probably the most physically challenging of the 3 phases. I mean, you get up early in the morning, you start off an hour and a half calisthenics, you'll run the chow, you'll come back, and then you start your day with, okay, now we have a 4-mile run in soft sand, you come back for about 35 minutes, you have a quick classroom, then you go back out and you do a 2-mile swim, open ocean swim, then you come back, you have a little classroom, then you go out and you do an obstacle course, you come back and you have chow for 15 minutes, then you come back and your whole day is this kind of physical stress on you and your teammates. The second phase is diving. You learn to dive basic scuba. You learn to dive what we call the Drager underwater breathing apparatus. It doesn't go off any bubbles for swimmer sneak attacks. About 10 weeks long. You really kind of test yourself as a frogman because you really things that are underwater, you kind of concealed areas or confined areas. And then the third phase is land warfare phase. And this is really just how you shoot, move, and communicate. And when I went through training, all of my instructors were Vietnam veterans. So we had a guy that had an 80 Cross, which was the second highest award. We had guys with Silver Stars and Bronze Stars and Purple Hearts, and they were a tough, crusty group. It was very interesting. The first thing they teach you when you get through SEAL training is every morning you come into your barracks and you go through a uniform inspection. And we had these kind of green uniforms we had to starch them. We had this 8-sided navy cover you wore. Your shoes had to be polished to a bright shine. You had to be able to see your fingers, shine in the shoes. Brass had to be polished. You do a uniform inspection, and then, and you've all heard me tell this story, but then you had to make sure your bed was perfectly made. And I remember thinking, well, this is a little ridiculous. I came to SEAL training because I wanted to be a battle-hardened SEAL, and I've got these Vietnam veterans that are telling me, you need to make your bed, and you need to make it to exacting standards. And my mother, an East Texas woman who was a school teacher, had told me from my very early age, as I'm sure most of your parents did, make your bed. But I just did it because Mom told me to. I'm not sure I really understood why I was doing it. Well, I got in there, and your bed had to be, your pillow had to be right at the headboard had to be right centered. Your blanket had to be folded in a perfect rectangle. You had to have these hospital corners, 45-degree hospital corners. And then the instructor would be able to come by and test the bed to make sure that it met the standards. And the lessons from that were a couple of things. One, it was about making sure you did the first task of the day. If you pull up New York Times today, or CNN or New York Times on the web, it talks about clutter and depression. It talks about clutter and depression. And it was interesting because it is about, can you keep your room clean? It is about how your house is and whether or not that leads to depression. That's a little bit of a sidebar for you docs who are kind of wake you up here in the morning. But the fact of the matter is, this bed is about doing your first task of the day. But the other thing they reinforced with me was, it was about the fact that the little things in life matter. If you couldn't do your bed, if you couldn't make your bed to exacting standards, how are you ever going to lead a tough, complex SEAL mission? This was the challenge. Get your hospital corner to 45 degrees, because if you can't do that, how am I going to expect you to go into Konar Province, take a helicopter, 40 miles behind enemy territory, patrol for 15 kilometers up 8,000 feet, get to an enemy compound, engage the enemy, and get the bad guy and come back? How can I ever trust you to do that if you can't make your bed? And it was an important lesson for me. And I tell you, I carried it with me for the rest of my military career. But there was something else later on that I found was important. After 9/11, when I was spent a lot of time in Iraq and Afghanistan, in Afghanistan we had what we referred to as a B hut. And a B hut was a plywood room. So I was a 3-star admiral, pretty senior, and that's all you had was a plywood room. And it had nothing in it but a bed. There was no latrine, there was no restroom, there was just a bed. The restrooms were outside. And every morning I would get up, and as the commander of this Joint Special Operations Command, every day you knew that bad things were going to happen. Kids were going to get killed on the battlefield. Civilians were probably going to get injured as a result of the things that you did inadvertently. Some general or admiral or president was going to be yelling at you because you hadn't done something right. As soon as you stepped out that door, chaos was going to reign. But inside that bee hut, there was one thing I controlled, and it was that bed. I got up every morning, went through routine, made my bed, but I knew when I walked out that door, now I had to deal with everything out there. Well, when I came back at night, and there were long days, as you can certainly appreciate, and sometimes the days drug on, but eventually I would get back to that room, and when I came into that room, there was that bed made. It sounds like a little thing, but certainly in your business, you probably appreciate that more than most. And I got to tell you, as I said, for me, my mother had always told me to make my bed, but the fact of the matter is, I realized there was a reason behind that, and I took that with me for the rest of my career. In SEAL training, very, very early on, they give you this thing called an inflatable boat small, an IES. It's a raft, it's a rubber raft, and it takes 7 guys to carry the rubber raft. And you got straps, it's about 8 feet long, weighs about 100 and some odd pounds once it's fully inflated. You've got rubber straps on the front of it. And they tell you, okay, this is a very simple task for you. We want you guys as part of this boat crew to take this rubber raft. You're going to get to the surf zone. You're going to go out through the surf. Waves are coming in San Diego, and the waves sometimes off the coast of San Diego, certainly during the wintertime, are pretty heavy. They go from 8 to 12 feet high, and they will plunge hard. They said, you go out through the surf, paddle down a couple miles, and come back in. Pretty simple task. The guys that are on the front are the number 1 guys. Their job is to take the boat, to pull it into the surf zone, so that it's heading front end. The number 2 guys are on the side, they're pushing to make sure the boat doesn't sway one way or the other. The number 3 guys are in the back, pushing behind, and as the officer, as the coxswain, you have to jump into the boat, you stick your oar in the water, you make sure the boat is stable, moving in the right direction, you yell for everybody to get in, everybody gets in, and you yell stroke count, stroke, stroke, stroke. And you find out again very quickly that if somebody on your 7-man team doesn't pull their weight, that boat will all of a sudden start to turn. Everybody has got to do the stroke count at the same time. Everybody has got to be as strong as everybody else. If there's a slacker in that group, you're going to find out pretty doggone quick. You also realize that I don't care how smart you are, I don't care how strong you are, I don't care how fast you are, you're not going to paddle that boat by yourself. The fact of the matter is, going through life takes a team. It takes everybody to get to the end of the course that you're paddling on. Years later, I was in a parachute accident. 2001, pretty severe parachute accident, busted my pelvis apart, I've got plates and pins and all that sort of thing. Up to that point in time in my career, I had been through a lot of kind of near-death events. It was just kind of part of the daily routine of being a Navy SEAL. You jump out of airplanes, you're locking out submarines, you're diving under ships, things are happening, you're blowing things up, you're getting shot at. And up to that point in time, I was strong enough, fast enough, smart enough, agile enough to be able to kind of get out of the way of things. I managed to get out of these tough situations, and then one day I didn't. And the next thing you know, I find myself in the hospital and then in a wheelchair and on crutches for a long time. And I realized at that point in time, it's not that I hadn't known before, but it was really driven home at that point in time that, again, I was a very accomplished SEAL, but I wasn't going anywhere without the help of my friends, without my wife, without the people around me, without the docs that took care of me. So as you go forward in your careers, and you are undoubtedly some of the smartest folks around, you just have to realize constantly you're going to need help as you go through. And we all do. As I said, having watched this, certainly after that 9/11 happened, I was not able to get into the war immediately. They sent me to the White House, where I had been, and then I got into the war in 2003. And then every single day, you watched how men on the battlefield operated, and you realized that you had to do it as a team. Later on in SEAL training, the first phase, you have what you refer to as Hell Week. So first phase is 10 weeks long. The second to last week in first phase is Hell Week. And Hell Week is 6 days of essentially no sleep, constantly running, swimming, doing obstacle courses, those sorts of things. And on Wednesday of Hell Week, you go down to the mud flats. And the mud flats are an area that, probably a little bit bigger than the center part of the stage here. It is a runoff from Tijuana and San Diego that merge together. It's called the Tijuana Sloughs. The mud's about 3 to 4 feet deep in the center area. I'm not really sure what the runoff is. It's just one of those things you really didn't want to ask. What I do know, though, is as the years went by, we had 3 people that came down with flesh-eating disease, so they finally decided to stop doing mud flats in those areas. But back in the 1970s, nobody really cared about that. So they would bring you, on Wednesday of Hell Week, you'd paddle down from Coronado down a couple miles, and you'd come in on the beach. And the instructors, this was the time when most people quit going through SEAL training. Because by this time, you've been up straight for 3 days, you've been cold, wet, and miserable for 3 days, and now they're going to put you in the mud for the next 8 to 10 hours. And you had, mud relays, and mud ballets, and mud wrestling, and the mud, of course, just fatigues you. You can't move in the mud, and it's cold, and it's wet, and the breeze is coming off the ocean, and it is miserable. And at one point in time, the sun was getting ready to set. We had done something wrong. The entire class was in the mud flats. And the instructors were about 10 yards back, and they had built a little fire off to the side. And it was nice. They were kind of having a cup of coffee, and everything's looking good. And I remember we're all in the mud, and we're sitting down, and we're essentially up to our neck in mud. And the instructor came to the edge, has a cup of coffee, and says, gentlemen, it's really nice. It's warm over here. And it's really nice. We got a cup of coffee. So look, all you have to do, the entire class, you can all come out of the mud. I just need 5 guys to quit. 5 guys quit, and you can all get out of the mud. And I remember the guy next to me, we were locked arms in arms for solidarity. The guy next to me, he's like looking at this instructor, a cup of coffee, and he's like, no, man, I'm out of here. And I'm grabbing hard, and I'm saying, man, hang with us, hang it up. So there's just 5 guys. The instructor would kind of patrol up and down the edge of the mud flats. And finally, one kid at the end of the row started singing. And I'm often asked what that song was, and I tell people I will take that to my grave because it is not a politically appropriate nor a song for his company. It's not even a song for battle-hardened SEALs. But he started singing, and of course the instructor comes over immediately and yells at him and says, "Stop that singing!" And before long, 2 guys were singing, and 3 guys, and we all started singing. And the kid that was getting ready to break loose kind of came back out of the ranks, and we held tight. And it was about the role of the leader to inspire. It wasn't the officer who decided to start singing. It was one of the junior enlisted guys at the end of the ranks that knew we needed to pull together. Something needed to bring us together. And when he started that singing, he inspired all of us. I've told the story before that back in 2011, we had a horrific, horrendous helicopter crash at Extortion 17. We lost 38 guys in Afghanistan on August 6th of 2011. And it was a couple days before my change of command. Went down to Dover Air Force Base to meet the families coming in. And it was in a large room, and you can imagine the difficulty you've got, grieving parents, grieving widows, kids, and the President of the United States, the service secretaries, and the senior chiefs of the services, and myself, because they were SEALs, most of them were SEALs, and we had some Army guys who were flying, great Army pilots. And we went down to spend some time with these folks to pass on our sincere sympathies for their losses. And as we moved around the room, and I had to do this way too many times in my career, but I'd never seen it kind of en masse like this. But as we went around the room, you have learned, unfortunately over the course since 9/11, I learned the things you need to tell parents as best you can in situations like that. And I know those of you that have worked in this field have had to do something like that probably a number of times before. But I watched John Kelly, who was at the time a 3-star Marine general and was the military assistant to the Secretary of Defense. And John Kelly was making his way around the room at the time, and out of the corner of my eye, I watched as John talked to a number of the families. And for some reason, John seemed to connect in a way that the rest of us didn't seem to be connecting. And over the course of the hour or so before the C-17 with the remains arrived, John talked to as many of those families as he could. And he never said a word about the fact that he had lost a son in Afghanistan. But what he did was he inspired the people that were there because he could make a connection that frankly none of the rest of us could. But I think what was also interesting was, I didn't know John well then, I got to know him quite a bit in the years to come. He and I worked in Iraq. And of course, as you know, John is now the Chief of Staff in the White House. And regardless of what you think of the politics or how John may have handled himself, I got to tell you, watching him at that point in time was about as inspirational as it could have come. And again, this is what leaders do. They inspire in the very, very darkest moments. And it wasn't so much the fact that he was connecting with parents. I think for those around us and for those that watched him in the years certainly after this event, you always worry, what happens if I lose a son or a daughter? What happens if my family has to go through this? And when I watched John Kelly and how he reacted, how he stepped up in the toughest times, I realized that gives you inspiration that you can probably do it as well. And so that's what you find is what leaders do. They inspire, whether they're in the mud or whether they're in the darkest moments of somebody's tragedy. Getting back to SEAL training, in third phase, we are, as we go through training, at one point in time, we have to learn to do kind of basic infantry tactics. And part of this is how do you deal with an ambush? And ambush for us, again, these were all Vietnam veterans. They had worked in the jungles, and it was a standard procedure. You would patrol the enemy, which was going to be the instructors. They would hide in this kind of narrow pathway. There were bushes on each side. And as the SEAL officer in the platoon, my job was to take my 14-man platoon. We would patrol in at some point in time. The instructors were going to ambush us. We had a procedure we had to go through, which was, roll right or roll left, call ambush right, ambush left. When you're in the kill zone, what you have to do is you have to immediately lay down a base of fire and get out of the kill zone. So, as I'm walking down the path, you know what's going to happen. Sure enough, the instructors open up on the right-hand side. I yell ambush right. We all drop down. And we begin to engage the instructors. This is all blank ammunition, but there are grenade simulators coming. They're loud. There's smoke going on. There's a lot of chaos happening. And at that point in time, I realized that this is my John Wayne moment. I'm innocent. I'm going to show them that I know how to be a leader. So I got up from my position. We're all lying down. There's an appoint man in front of me. There's a radio in here. And the instructors are all firing at us. So I get up from my position, and I run around. I know I can flank the instructors. So I run around this hedgerow, and I see the instructors, they don't see me, and I mow them down, I cut them down. I'm like, yeah, we won. They were not so happy with that. They said, you do know bullets go both ways, right? So you were running into your own counter fire. But that wasn't the point. I got back and I was talking to the platoon, I said, yeah, we won, guys, we won. They said, yeah, that's not exactly what we saw. What we saw was in the middle of the firefight, you got up and ran away. I said, no, I ran away, I got up and I ran around, I got the bad guys, we won. They said, that wasn't what we saw. You got up and you ran away. And I realized at that point in time how valuable communications was to a leader. It was about communications. In the middle of a crisis, you have got to be able to communicate. And for me, it was a tactical communication. It was, did I communicate with guys up and down the road? And the answer was no, I didn't. I just got up because I was the smartest guy in that platoon. I knew I was. I knew what had to be done tactically. I knew I had to get up and move around. But I didn't convey it, I didn't communicate it to anyone. What I learned from that was, and you're in a crisis, there's no more crisis when you're in a firefight, and people are dying or getting wounded. So you have to know how to function in a firefight, but you also have to know how to function in a crisis situation. Whatever your situation might be, whether it's a managerial situation, whether it's a crisis situation, the emergency room, you're going to have to know how to do it, you have to communicate to the team around you. And particularly as you get up to the managerial level, for me as a chancellor, for me as a 3-star and 4-star, communications is essential. Let me go back a little bit to when I was a midshipman here. Probably one of the most important leadership lessons I learned as a midshipman, and I was here at the ROTC, and between your freshman and sophomore year, you go on what they euphemistically call a cruise. And I was going on a cruise to Pearl Harbor. Oh, this is a nice cruise to Pearl Harbor. Well, they put you on a Navy ship. This was a fast frigate, a pointy vessel. And they say, you know, you are getting ready to be an officer. But they send you out there as an enlisted man. And so when I'm on the ship, you essentially do everything the troops do. You scrub the decks, you scrub the latrines, the heads, you work in the boiler room, you chip and paint. You're doing all those sort of things that your sailors are going to do. It was a 9-week cruise. And I tell you what it really reinforced with me was the importance of the decisions you will make as a leader. You recognize right up front that the officers on that ship a lot of times had no idea the decisions they were making and how it affected that kid in the boiler room. The officers on that ship had no idea the decisions they were making and how it affected that kid that was cleaning the head. You have to make that connection. As you go through your career, we talk about professional distance in the military. You have to be careful about that professional distance getting so far between you and the decisions that you make that you're not thinking carefully about the troops. And again, the troops can be anything. They don't have to be guys in uniform. They're going to be the team that works for you. So every decision you make will have that cascading effect. You need to understand what that cascading effect is and not get stuck in the ivory tower, so to speak. Let me talk about a couple more things, and then I'll segue into a little bit of relationships in the military, and then I'm happy to open it up for Q&A if you like. Last thing is about failure. We all go through life, we're all going to have these failures, and I think you have to learn how to deal with failure. I had the opportunity to fail a lot, so I learned a lot about how to overcome failure. When I was a young lieutenant, I was at the most elite SEAL team in the world, and I was fired. It's never good to get fired. It's particularly bad to get fired when you're in the military. And again, I remember thinking, well, my career's over. You get fired from an important job because the commanding officer has lost faith and confidence in you. Somehow you have not done your job. And I thought, maybe it's just time to get out now. My wife, God bless her, said, you've never quit anything in your life. Now is not the time. I hung around and things worked out okay. But let me take you to time in combat, because really nothing steals you for battle quite like failure. And when we were getting ready for the Bin Laden raid, and I had been notified in November, December of 2010 that we had a lead on Bin Laden. But candidly, I've seen a lot of leads on Bin Laden. And I had some doubt whether or not this was a valid lead or not. In January, I had my first meeting with the President of the National Security Team to kind of look at the information on Bin Laden. But as this was all unfolding, I was in Afghanistan. I'd come back to the States. I had just been diagnosed with chronic lymphocytic leukemia. So my staff thought I was coming back to have my CLL looked at Bethesda. So it was great, as we say in the military, it was a great cover for action. Nobody asked any questions. They thought it was too private for questions, so I was able to move from Afghanistan back to the States. But while all this was going on with Bin Laden, we had a pirate incident off the coast of Somalia. And it was a vessel, the motor vessel Quest, a yacht, a private yacht that was being crewed by two couples in their 60s. And about 20 pirates took over the motor vessel Quest. So I got called in. I've dealt with pirate incidents before. We had the one with Captain Phillips. We used to have pirate incidents all the time. The one thing I knew about pirates is it was really a business for them. It was all about, can I get in? Can we get the hostages? Can somebody pay us ransom? It's a business deal. Nobody wants to kill anybody. So in the course of this, I am working through a negotiator, an FBI negotiator, who's on the ship. I am actually in Afghanistan, but in my location, the technology was so good that I'm looking on a giant screen with high-definition view of the MV Quest. And I've got probably better situational awareness than the people that are actually riding the ship, because we've got a drone overhead, I've got high-definition cameras looking. I had really good situational awareness of what's happening. So we go through this discussion with the negotiator, and I said, look, we're not going to let the yacht, and to get to Somalia. Because once they got to land in Somalia, the chances that they would get the ransom, the chances we would ever get these hostages back was very, very remote. We've seen this for a long time. Sometimes they held hostages from other countries for years, and they died in captivity. So we weren't going to let these folks get to the coast. So make a long story short, in the course of this, one of the pirates, we brought on board the ship, kind of say, look, man, let's just, everybody kind of stand down, you go back to Somalia, we'll get our hostages back, all good. And he said, nope, not going to do that. We're heading to Somalia and you can't stop us. So I said, fine, you're going to stay on the ship, I'm going to negotiate with somebody else. So I started negotiating with another one of the pirates. And he seemed to be a little bit more reasonable, said, look, fine, I'll tell you what, 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, we'll be ready to kind of turn over the hostages and we'll kind of figure out where we go from there. I said, all good. But, you know, you never quite trust them. Well, 8 o'clock the next morning, as I am watching on the high-definition screen, I see shots ringing out across the small boat. You can see the rounds coming out through the wooden hull. I immediately call SEALs in. SEALs get on board the boat, get in the night fights, kill a couple of pirates. Unfortunately, the 4 hostages are dead, or they are mortally wounded, died soon thereafter. You think back and you say, what could I have done differently? What could I have done to have saved those 4 people? And that's about as difficult a failure as you're going to have. And I thought about that for a long time. But at the same time, we were preparing for the Bin Laden raid. And I remember my command sergeant major coming in at one point in time, and he knew I had been kind of looking back thinking, where in the decision tree did I do something wrong? What could I have done differently? He came up and he said, boss, look, you made all the right decisions. The pirates made a decision too, but you made all the right decisions. There's nothing you could have done on this. But I got to tell you, to this day, I think back on that quite a bit and ask myself, what could I have done better? But at the same time, I had decisions to make. I had decisions about the Bin Laden raid. I had decisions about the fighting we were doing in Iraq. I had decisions about the fighting in Afghanistan. And there's one thing I've learned for a good leader is, you're going to make a mistake. Hopefully those mistakes don't cost people their lives, but when they do, you learn from those mistakes and you have to move forward. The good leaders are prepared to make the very next tough decision. If you can't make the next difficult decision, you are never going to be a great leader. And the fact of the matter is, I had guys in combat that needed me to make the right decisions that day. And I think that's what separates the good leaders from the great leaders. Good leaders will be able to learn from their mistakes and move on, but the great leaders are ready to make the next tough decision. And again, part of what you learn, unfortunately, sometimes the hard way in the military. Let me just talk a little bit now, transition, and then you want me to open up for questions?
Yes, sir.
Happy to do that. When I talked about my time in Iraq and Afghanistan, and so I was talking to a few of the docs earlier, it was remarkable to me to watch military medicine in action, but recognize a lot of the docs that we had were reservists. They were civilian doctors that were on call, and they mobilized very quickly after 9/11. Some of them went to the hospital ships, but a lot of them came to Iraq and came to Afghanistan, and just did some magnificent work, certainly in the areas of trauma. And during the hard fighting in Iraq from kind of 04 to 07, there were hundreds of kids dying a week. And the bad thing about the war, or the good thing about war, there's a good thing, is we learned a lot on the medical side. And you take a look at the prosthetics that have come out of certainly since 9/11. You take a look at how we've learned to manage care in the field. The classic golden hour, it is absolutely true. I've seen guys that you would have thought would have been mortally wounded, but if they are not mortally wounded at the beginning, they have not taken a round to the heart or a round to the head or some vital organ, but there's no way to save them. You put them on that helicopter, the medics and the corpsmen that we have, and the surgical docs we have that are in the field, able to kind of stop the bleeding, get them to a combat hospital, and the survival rate was in the 90s. We have obviously a lot of very traumatic injuries, guys stepping on pressure plate mines, severe blast injuries. And watching the docs operate was remarkable to me, because as a kid, as I said, I grew up going to the hospital, and in military medicine, when I grew up as an adult, The docs didn't seem to have a leadership role. You would walk on the hall, and the docs did their thing. I mean, if they were the pediatrician, they were delivering babies. If they were this, they were doing this. But they didn't have a broader role. In fact, when we put them in those broader leadership roles, we found in military medicine that it didn't work well, so we started a medical service corps to be able to do the leadership of making sure that everything in the hospital was running well so the docs could be the docs. But what we found overseas was the docs had not only to be docs, they had to be leaders. They had to run their team in a way that I think was unprecedented for a lot of them that had been back in civilian hospitals in the States. Because it wasn't just about being the great ER surgeon, it was about running the team locally, which you all do, but it was also about kind of running the broader team that was from the time that you had a combat injury to the time that the patient showed up in the hospital. And it was remarkable to watch these doctors grow under very, very difficult circumstances. And I talk about, my mother wanted me to be a doctor, and I said I didn't have the academic strength to be a doctor, but I spent a lot of time in the hospitals, in the combat hospitals. When my guys would go in, I would generally get in the OR and kind of watch the docs work, and again, just remarkable. But I remember one time in particular, it was on actually September 11th of 2010, I had two SEALs that had been in a combat operation and had been shot. I had the word that they were going to come in, and they had been back into the hospital. The combat hospital, which was literally about 100 yards from my headquarters. So I got over there just as the helos landed. The kids came in, rolled in on a gurney, and one of the guys, two big kids, and they immediately triaged and realized that they were both in bad circumstances, but at the time, we really only had kind of one doc on duty. This was earlier, we hadn't really transitioned in Afghanistan. And so the doc runs, we put the other guy in the other OR, doc comes in, rips the clothes off this guy, they're cutting him off. So he is on the operating table, got a nurse in there, got the surgical team in there, two very young female medics had come in. And the doc immediately cracks his kid's chest open, and all those of you that have been there, I mean, it becomes a very gory scene. There's blood on the floor, there's bile on the floor. He is literally up on his knee. He is reaching into the chest cavity. He is looking for the round that has, unfortunately, a 7.62 round, big round, has come through the side, through his breastplate. He had been wearing Kevlar front and back, but the round hit here, round tumbled through and cut in pieces. And the doc got in, worked this kid, but couldn't save him. Comes off that and immediately runs into the next room where the other SEAL is. And kind of same situation. We thought we were going to be able to save the other kid, but we didn't. And the doc, I remember the same thing, cuts his kid's chest open, gets on top, strolling around, trying to figure out how to stop the bleeding, but within a matter of minutes it was clear this kid wasn't going to make it either. And I remember after that, the young doc, he probably wasn't about 32 years old, young Army major, I believe. I remember him leaning up against the wall and dropping down to his knees, and he wept. Should be. I knew then why my mom wanted me to be a doctor. I always hope by telling these stories, then it'll get easier. It doesn't get easier. I have a chance later on to come talk to that doc. And young kid, and I'd seen a lot of kids die in combat, and there wasn't anything he was going to be able to do to change the outcome of that. And that 7.62 round had just ripped across all vital organs, and those kids were going to die. And I told the doc kind of the same thing that I would tell you. You know, there are going to be times that no matter what you do, you're just not going to be successful. But I told him, you got to apply the same level of intensity, the same level of commitment the very next time the next kid comes in, because you might just be able to save the next kid. So, sorry folks, I guess I needed a little bit more sleep last night, I'm wrong. But I'll tell you, this is the great thing about the profession you were in, is you know, hopefully you won't have many times like that. But my guess is in the course of your careers, for those of you that work in the ER, for those of you that are dealing with patients who will have to die, you will have to deal with this in your career. You will have to deal with you know, people that die. You will have to know how to deal with that. But more importantly, I think you will have to know how to care for the caregiver. One of the things that we are doing here at UT is taking a hard look at physician burnout. And I've got Dr. Ray Greenberg and the whole team that is working to take a hard look at how we make sure that we are taking care of the docs, that we are taking care of the nurses, that we are taking care of the technicians that have to deal with these very, very difficult situations. You know, none of us are immune to this, as you can see. So we want to do the best we can here at UT to make sure that we are figuring out how to do that, not just within the physicians within the UT system, but frankly, nationwide. And we've been doing a lot of convening in that area. So let me pause there and collect myself, and then be happy to answer any questions you might have. Somebody help me out here for that.
Right, I got a question.
Thank you.
When you find yourself in a situation where something is happening that you just don't expect, and it's terrible in your mind and everyone else's mind, but you're the leader, which I'm sure you've found yourself in many of these situations. Do you have a mental trick or some way of going through a checklist to get yourself back on the track that you need to be and not be swept up into this chaotic situation?
Yeah, great question. I'll break down to a couple of areas. One, you know, for sometimes I find, again, talking about things all of a sudden just come over me. And it becomes emotionally tough for me to talk about certain things. And I have not figured out a way, as you can tell, to handle that. And sometimes, if I'm in the middle of a speech and it happens, and sometimes I don't feel it just happens, I start talking fast. And if I talk real fast, I get fast and move on. However, you know, in a situation where it is, you know, I am not emotionally involved, but I have to get the troops past it. This is probably a bigger issue that I have to deal with. You have to recognize right up front, you're the leader. They're looking to you for leadership. When we had casualties on the battlefield, I remember going down one time in Kandahar, and we had just lost one of our SEALs down there. And I went down to talk to the the SEAL team leader. And he was having a very, very difficult time. This was his first combat loss, and great kid that had been killed in action. And I had to pull him aside because he was, as I was just now, very emotional. I can tell you, when I was in combat, you never saw me like that. That was not what happened to me in combat. Because I knew my role in combat was to make sure that the other guys didn't get emotional. Because we had another mission to do the next night. And so if they weren't on their game, somebody else was going to die. Because you can't afford, you lose a buddy in combat, you need to take a deep breath, got it, we'll breathe when we have an opportunity to do that, now we got to move on. And it's the same thing for the leader. The troop sergeants, they're going to be looking to you. And they're going to be saying, how are you responding to this? If you break down, if you get emotional, if you don't look like you've got the strength to handle the situation, then you'll find they won't have it. So I think it is actually a lot easier for me in the middle of the chaotic situation, in the middle of the challenges. I always thought that was my strength. I mean, I could step up when we had multiple mass casualties and rally the troops and get them moving in the right direction. It is when you have time to sit back and reflect on it and think about it, and you're no longer encumbered by the need to lead the people you're talking to in a way that is, that is significant. That's when it kind of comes back and gets me. As I said, I don't tell that story very often, but I have told other stories, and I'm thinking, I'm over it now, I'm good, and then I get off stage and fall apart. But I will tell you again, I'll go back to in the middle of a tough crisis situation, the only little trick I have is, it's on me. And one of the things you learn as a leader from a very young age in the military is, the troops are going to be turned out. I don't care whether you're an ensign, and you've got crusty old Master Chief petty officers that have been around for a long time, you're still the guy down in charge. And that gives me the confidence and helps, structure my thinking to say, okay, I got it, and I'm the guy that's got to make that happen. Other question? Yes, ma'am.
One of the challenges that I see we face in medicine, I wonder if there's any wisdom from the military environment that could inform how we do this particular aspect, is taking time away from, we're in the OR, we're seeing patients, we're in clinic, and to reflect on those times when things didn't go as we planned. In surgery, we have our morbidity mortality conference, which is very deeply part of our culture, but we are no longer just independent surgeons who have sole influence over the outcomes of our patients, and trying to get other folks who are involved in the care of our patients and our schedules to align, to take time and say, well, how could we have done that better? How could that outcome have been different, or how could it be different next time? When you're in the situation of getting shot at and having to plan for the next mission, how does what
Right,
do you guys do
it's
that?
interesting. Since I made the transition, I told folks, when I left running Special Operations Command, it was a large command, and I took over the job as a chancellor, frankly, everything was very familiar to me. There was nothing about running the UT system that I found different than running Special Operations Command. I said, figure out what color tie I was going to wear. Because leadership was leadership. I had a great staff. I had kind of subordinate commanders in the presence of the institutions. But what has been different is, in the world of academia, they teach you to be collegial. Well, very collegial. And one of my first staff meetings, I said something like, I'm going to kick this guy's ass. And I thought, work with these people every day. But if you understand that the culture is about being ruthlessly critical in a positive fashion so that you can be better the next time, then everybody can buy into it. If the culture is going to be, well, we're going to be very collegial and nice because that's the culture we've been raised in, then it's difficult to get there. Then if you're the ruthless person, well, nobody wants to talk to you because you're the whatever. But if you understand this part of your culture, I think that's what's going to help you to progress.
And how do you get your leaders then to take that feedback? Because that's definitely not as strong, I think, in our culture.
Yeah, and again, believe me, that's not an unusual problem. People would talk, and this is one of the things that I thought was interesting. When we looked at the conventional Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marine Corps, the critique or the criticism that the young officers and the non-commissioned officers had of the senior officers was, we can never talk truth to power. We're always afraid to say something because it's going to affect our promotion. That was never the case in the Special Operations Community. Part of our culture was, hey, you got to stand there and take the hit. If you screwed up, listen to the privates, listen to the young petty officers, and that's okay. So it's got to start at the top, though. You've got to have the senior leaders got to come in and say, it's okay, folks. If you think we're not doing something right, tell me. When I took the job as a chancellor, I pulled my staff almost on the first day. I said, look, I'm new to this world of higher education. I don't understand clinical care. I don't understand what a chair does, what a dean does, what a provost does. I'm going to learn that stuff. But in the process of doing that, do not let me step on any landmines. So if you're part of my staff, I not only want you to give me feedback, I will hold you accountable if you do not give me feedback. Because if I find that I've done something wrong and you knew I was heading in that direction, we're going to have a little conversation with my boss. And I let them know very quickly, this is the way I do business. Be brutally honest with me. If you're brutally honest with me, then we'll get along just great, and we'll stay out of more trouble than, of course, I get some trouble anyway, but the fact of the matter is that's the only way to stay out, and that's the way I learn. And I think any leader in a leadership position should understand that's their responsibility. That's part of leadership, is being able to handle tough criticism and making sure that you build that culture within your staff or within the group of people that work with you that says, it's okay to do that. Yes, sir.
So Steve Stephenson, there's a lot of stereotypes about hierarchy in the military, having been in the military. Many of those are true. However, I'd be interested to hear your perspective and maybe a couple sea stories on the role of a command sergeant major or master chief petty officer from an officer perspective.
You've probably heard me talk about this before, Steve, but and Dr. Stephen Hook, we're running out of time. We all have a little work to do. So, in the military, you have the officer who is the commanding officer, and then it's a little bit like management and labor. Then you have the senior enlisted man, the non-commissioned officer, who is, in most cases, is a master chief, or is, in my case, because I was a Navy guy in the Army world, I had a sergeant major. And the great non-commissioned officers understand that their role is to be the advisor to the commander. They represent the rank and file. My command sergeant major, and then before him, my master chief. In the case of my command sergeant major, he had been in Mogadishu during Black Hawk Down. He had fought in Bosnia and Kosovo. He had been in the First Gulf War, and then he spent time in Iraq and Afghanistan. He had a tremendous amount of combat experience. That's who you want as your command sergeant major. But back to the other point we were making earlier is he never hesitated to come in my office, close the door, and say, "Boss, you are all screwed up." But what he did do was, once we had a conversation, and he expressed his concerns to me, when I gave him my decision, when he walked out of that office, my decision was his decision. And he would carry that back to the troops in a way that really did reinforce the message. So instead of going back to troops and going, the Admiral, he wants us to do this, and I guess we're going to have to do that. No, he would go forward and say, boys and girls, here's what we're going to do. And he would just kind of lay it out for them in a way that was exactly the way I would have transmitted that message. So the thing that was important about the command sergeant major was it had to be somebody you trusted, that you could talk about anything with. It had to be somebody that you, in my case, traveled with. We were on the road a lot. You had to be comfortable with them. They had to be prepared to tell you the truth, no matter what that truth looked like or smelled like or how bad it was. And then they had to take a decision that you made and make that their decision. I mean, that was the role of the sergeant major, and I had one of the best in the military.
We have time for one more question. Preferably from a student.
No pressure.
No pressure. Okay, now,
Anybody?
one more question.
I'll just make the point that I think you have modeled the kind of leadership that we need in medicine. You have talked about your failures. You have shown your emotions. If there's one thing that will maintain meaning and purpose in our work, is sharing the meaning and purpose and emotions of our work. And it is important to be open to criticism and feedback. That is part of it, but it's also important to be human.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you very much. Very good.
Next month is Stephen Hawking. He's going to talk